folks, welcome to the Real Deal Fishing Show. We got a great episode ahead for you, kayak fishing. We're going to talk to some of my friends in the fishing industry, Shaw Grigsby, Kevin VanDam, and Hank Parker, and we're going to reveal some kayak fishing tips. Yeah, these guys fish the pro circuits, but they're also avid kayak anglers. So stay tuned. We got a great episode ahead for you, kayak fishing from the pros.
It's something I never really thought much about until a couple of years ago, and I started seeing a lot of guys even out on some of the bigger bodies of water that we fish around the country. And the other big thing is with Bass Pro Shops being a sponsor of mine, I've seen the explosion for them in sales. They have a whole line of Ascend kayaks and fishing kayaks, and my parents have a place, a cottage on a small lake in Michigan, and we got a couple of them there, and that's where it really, the first time I ever really even tried it out. So now it's, like you say, there's kayak tournaments now, and it's really popular. But to me, the big advantage is kayak anglers can go places that you just can't go in big boats, and not only that, but you can access places that have never been fished before in a lot of cases, especially in certain regions of the country. Like where I live in Michigan, there's 11,000 lakes, and there's all kinds of small little, ponds and streams and things like that you just, you can park on the side of the road and plop, pull it off the rack on your car or your truck and drop in where, you couldn't even access it from the shore, just because it's too overgrown and brushy. And, Florida's another place where you see a lot of that type of thing where there's just potholes all over the place. And, they have some incredible fishing in them too. So, and I'm sure there's, a lot of people that like to float the trout streams and rivers and things like that too.
Oh, it's key for river fishing and rocks and frogging.
Yep. I see them. I see them everywhere now. The technology and the designs are so much better than just a few years ago. They're light, easy to manage. They're not tippable. You can hardly tip one over if you wanted to. They're just stable.
Yeah. And the fish finders now that you could put on them too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The high-end ones are incredibly, well laid out and have all the features. Heck, if you don't have a depth finder and a powerful micro on one, you're not styling it.
Exactly.
So.
Have you ever run into the kayakers when you're fishing a bass tournament that are out on the water that you're sharing with them?
Yep, absolutely. Actually, it happens all the time now. Like I say, even on these big bodies of water that we go to, just because there's so many access points and things like that, you'll see them. Last year I was at a writers event at Toledo Bend in the spring. After our first event of the year in March, and the lake was really high. It was flooded to where it's, way back into the woods, and you can't get a bass boat in there without tearing it all up, scratching it all up. And I went into one area and there's kayakers, kayak fishermen, and they just, you go through there like it's nothing. It's just a total. It's like trying to drive a truck through the woods and instead of a four-wheeler,
Yeah, and you get into those low-pressured spots.
Yeah. So, but no, honestly, I see them all over the place now. You see, you go into a lot of obscure areas and try to fight your way to get into someplace special, and then there's a guy in kayak sitting there.
Guys,
so
he beat you to it.
It's very, very commonplace now. 5 years ago, you didn't see anybody. Now, really almost everywhere. I think it's pretty awesome. Kayaks they're extremely popular, but kayaks give you access to places and boat can't go. So, you know, and on a budget, how can you beat that too? Because you're paddling and all, and you know, it's just like there's nothing better. And even if you put trolling motor, you're still, you know, just you know, stealthily moving along and very, very economical to get that job done. Plus, you can go places that you just can't go on a regular boat because they only draft a few inches.
Right. It makes like fishing like the slop and frogging so much fun because you can float in a foot of water.
Exactly. And, you know, there's some things that I've noticed, you know, in my time of fishing in a kayak and fishing in a canoe and stuff like that, and fishing in little John boats where you're real close to water. It eliminates a few techniques, you know, that makes them a little harder because you're so low to the water. But, you know, overall, you still can do everything you do, you know, in a regular bass boat.
Right. Now you're fishing, you know, a bass tournament, Shaw. Have you ever run into a kayak angler out on the water with you?
Oh yeah, many times.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, it's just so fast, and you know, from 10 years to now, the explosion of like the sport has been so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're even doing a lot of saltwater stuff with it, so you know, that's pretty intense too.
Yeah, there's guys catching big reds on them, and then there's the guys that, you know, have their, you know, kayaks trailed out to the middle of the ocean, and then they go for the big game on, you know, kayaks.
Yeah, that's a little crazy kayaks. You're about to find a bait fish or something.
Right. Very cool. Now, how does fishing from a Hobie give, you know, you the advantage on pressured waters that the boats are on? What do you do differently than these guys in these boats, Hank?
Well, I still like power boats, and I still like all the electronic equipment with side imaging and down imaging, and all the benefits that you get from using your electronics and being able to fish big water. And on windy days, the stability that you have out of a big power boat. So I'm not one of those guys that are saying that kayak fishing is a superior way to fish or it gives you big advantages in every situation. The big advantage to me with the kayak is I access water that's inaccessible for a lot of guys. I fish in the Broad River close to where I live, where we actually have to carry the boat and put it in on the shoreline. I go back in some real shallow places that may open up or they may not. They may just stay shallow that you could not get in some of the bigger boats. And narrow places, I can get between boat docks. There's one place that I fish that you only have about 10.5 inches to get by, and then it opens up back on Lake Wiley between the boat docks. And if I have to, I can get out, just pick the kayak up, put it on the other side, and I access several acres of water that nobody else has access to unless they were walking or waiting.
Right. Fishing gives us the ability, I believe it gives us the upper hand to get into fishing situations that those boaters can't get into. We could get into the shallowest of water, the thickest of slop, where trolling motors on those boats are just giving up. We can get in there. So using that as our tool, using that kayak as our tool to get into those unpressured situations when we're out on the water is key. So being a kayak angler, you know, at times we do have an upper hand over those boaters. You know, yes, those boats are quick and they can get from point A to point B really quick, but we're able to get into those unpressured situations. And I love a kayak. I love to power fish in it. I love to have rods rigged up, ready to go to work those water columns. And those water columns being the top, the middle, and the bottom. And by having 3 rods on that kayak ready to go and target those water columns, I feel I can fish effectively and efficiently and cover water quick.